Hello, hello. Welcome to another episode of Burn the Wagon. Thank you for joining me. I'm going to have a guest on by the name Tribal Podcast, and then we'll get into introductions there in a little bit. First, I want to talk about something coming up. I just purchased some more stickers, and then a website that we're working on to get all the episodes up on there so they're edited and stuff for you guys. And then we're working on a theme song as well. So a couple of things in the works for Burn the Wagon. So yeah, thank you for joining me. And so thank you for joining me for this podcast where we're here to verbally burn the wagon. That is capitalism, colonialism, and patriarchy. So I'm going to invite my guests now. So thank you guys. So yeah, we'll just wait for him to pop in. So hopefully everybody's having a good day. So we're gonna have a good discussion on a couple of things that Tribal Podcast is doing out in Canocti, out in Lake County, I believe, the place they're from. So yeah, whenever they pop in, we'll get that discussion going. What's up, Beans? Thank you guys for joining me again. Just let me get this invite sent. And we'll get to the discussion. So you got some stickers coming in if you guys want to tap in about stickers. Working on another design for some more stickers too as well. Website, theme song. If anybody has any questions for today's podcast, definitely ask away. Tap into, okay, he's unable to join. Why is that? Invite. So I just sent you an invite again. Hopefully you'll be able to join on it. Hey, how's it going?
Hey, how are you? How are you?
I'm good, thank you.
Great.
Thank you for joining me today. Okay,
you're delayed on me. What was
what's
that?
up? Sorry.
You were delayed.
Thank you for joining me today.
Thank you for inviting me.
So we'll just get right into it. So we'll give you a little intro about yourself and where you're from and the tribe you're from. And I was just saying out in Canocti. So yeah, we'll get a little intro going.
Oh, okay. Well, again, my name, what you call my American name is James Brown. Okay. And I'm a traditional hereditary elder from my tribe. My tribe is called the Elam Modan. Now, what I am is also I'm a tribal historian, so I'm going to try to give you a lot of information about Native people and what we've gone through. And for example, we've been called American Indians, and most of our people accept that. And we all know we're not from India, but yet what America had to do, because they're on stolen land, is they had to make sure they didn't tell the true story of the people, the indigenous people here. And that's exactly what they did. So they made sure that, when they came in to colonize our people, that we had no traditional leaders left. Most of our lands were already taken. So there in California, we always talk about treaties, but in California, it's called the 18 Unratified Treaties in 1850. And what they came in and did was the state of California actually was what you call the state oppressor that was trying to get rid of all the California Indians. And they were becoming a state, so they knew they couldn't do that. So what they did was they created slave laws, and they called it the government protection of the American Indians. So I'm going to talk about stuff like that, but I just want to let you know what's so great with me is that I've been very fortunate in the fact that I grew up with alcohol and drug-free traditional parents. And many of my family did not. So a good portion of my life, there was a lot of codependency of my family that we had to take care of. And but our traditional elders said, these are our family. You don't abandon them, And so I've been lucky in that sense. So I've been a dancer in our roundhouse, tribal, what they call captain, a leader of that roundhouse. And I'm so lucky that my mother, her name was Alvina, and she was half Hawaiian. Okay. And So she was from the Big Valley tribe, which is up in Lakeport, on the north side of the lake here in Lake County. And so all of her family were also the roundhouse leaders at Big Valley. So on both sides of my family, my father, I'm actually James Brown the third.
Okay. Yeah, I saw that.
So anyway, so my father and my grandfather, so they're all were the traditional hereditary chiefs of our family, and that passed on down to me.
Wow.
And I'm the youngest of seven, so I had four brothers and two sisters.
Okay.
And unfortunately, in the last 3 years, I lost five of my family, two sisters and three brothers.
Very sorry to hear that. And where's your guys'
Yes, and
roundhouse
I'm
located?
finally, so for a while I stopped going to ceremony, and this year I get to go back. We have a certain period that we wait out of grace and respect for those elders that I passed on. So I'm going to be going back into the roundhouse. Yeah,
And
so I haven't been doing ceremony for a couple of years now.
How long usually is that? You said grace period, is that 2 to 3 years, or?
Yeah, sometimes it's at 4. And most of the time, it's at least 1 year that you have to wait after a traditional elder passed on before you dance again. And if you're a family.
Oh, okay. That's very interesting.
So,
I didn't know that.
Yeah. So there's a lot of that kind of thing going on, And so one of the things that what I can honestly tell you is that what I see is that the whole thing is they broke our families up. And so we're scattered now. And now we're taking it out on each other. For example, one of the big things I've been involved in is trying to prevent disenrollment from Native American people. And there's over 5,000 to 6,000 disenrolled in California alone. And these are all political things that their own tribe is doing to them. And I'm facing the same thing. The tribe tried to disenroll us, but they could not, because guess what? We're all first, second, and third cousins. That's how close we are in family. Okay, so a good example is, let me just kind of give you a little bit of my journey. What really helped me in my life path is that, so I have older brothers where they're all like, I liked your high school thing about the going to college, the football, because my family played sports all their life in high school, and that's what kept them going to school. If there was no sports, none of my family would have ever graduated. Yeah, my brothers and stuff. So unfortunately, you're supposed to go for an education, not for sports. But that's what kept our Native kids in there. Yeah. And what a lot of people don't realize, a lot of our Native people went to like World War I, World War II. They didn't go because they were gung-ho to go. That was the only thing available for them to keep their families alive. And that's what they did. So a good example, my grandfather, Jim Brown Sr., he went to World War I, and he was not even recognized as a citizen of the United States. And see, then all Native Americans were not citizens until 1924. And then still, when that law passed, it took until the 60s for a lot of our Native people to actually be able to vote. So, so what I've done is I've actually lived this experience. So I tell everyone, I said, it's kind of hard to explain because we always hear the buzzwords like termination, relocation, boarding schools. Well, guess what? I've been to all of them. My mother's tribe was terminated. We were relocated to Oakland, California. So I actually grew up in Oakland, California. Wow. I went from the first grade to the sixth grade in Oakland. And you know what? It was one of the best experiences of my life because it was so integrated there when I went to school. And so I was what you call a brat at the Indian Friendship House in Oakland. I was a kid there, So I grew up there. And so what was so great about it was my mother, and my father volunteered there. So we hung out at the Oakland Friendship House as well as the San Francisco Friendship House. Wow. And so we're really involved in our Native community down there. The great thing about us is we're only 100 miles from our trust lands, whereas a lot of the Native families that came to the Bay Area were from Montana, Oklahoma, way far away. So it was so great to see. And that's what I realized. Most of my life, I've been a community organizer, not realizing it, just being around my mother. And so that was one of the important things that So what I basically found in my research, America and all their institutions writes our Native American history in what we call a passive voice. So that way, see, all the people now who get the wealth and all the land think, oh, I didn't do that to those Native Americans. The pioneers long time ago did that to them. But see, they're getting the effects and the wealth from what they stole. And no Native Americans had that in California. And that's why the bad thing is when the casinos came along, everyone jumped on that, like, oh, here's our great. Well, guess what? The casinos has been the main thing bringing on the disenrollment within our tribes. So, matter of fact, I participated in a documentary. I believe it's coming out this year, and it started with the Pechanga tribe. And there's two tribes down south that disenrolled like two or 3,000 people, I think. But there's a documentary coming out this year, and they feature me and my wife on there because on our radio program, we did an interview about disenrollment. Yeah, so hopefully that'll be out in the next couple of months.
Okay, and what was that called? So people can check that out.
Well, it's just called Native American Disenrollment.
Okay.
And but what we're trying to do, see, is the ultimate goal is we want. We're so proud of Deb Haaland, for example, the new Native American Secretary of Interior. But what we need to do is address the corruption that took place inside the Bureau of Indian Affairs. And see, that's so here's my story kind of in 5 minutes, I guess you could say. So my tribe was, again, we got to understand how mining impact California and all tribal lands. Okay. So here it was first quicksilver mining. Then it went to mercury mining. So we're talking about the 1800s. So when the gold rush came, the aftermath of the gold rush was these mining companies that got together and got these big corporations going. And they are the ones who took most of our lands, our tribal lands. Now, see, what happened was under those treaties that were signed in 1850, the state of California basically went against it. And they hid it for 50 years. So think about that. From 1850 up to the 1900s, our Native people had no rights. The only way we could survive is to become slaves, to work for the local farmers. And that's really how most of our people got their names. We have families that are named after the ranchers because they wanted an American name, not a Native American name. So a lot of our families, that happened to them. And then a lot of them, while they were there, the non-Indians, were having sex with all the women and stuff like that and having kids. And then there's a lot of Native Americans now carry those names of all those army people and the mining people, So it's really hard when you look at it. I'm really hoping that we have more Native people that go become historians. And I like it because my elders taught me a lot of great things when I was young. And they would say, like, the word history. They said, cut that in half. And it really says his story. It don't include us. See? It only includes the white man's story of how he got here and his discovery. So none of us, and then they create this law. And what do they call it? Justice. Cut that in half. What does it say? Just us. See, and that's what law enforcement was. Law enforcement was the slave. They were the slave police.
Yeah.
They weren't. That's how they started out. So that all their mentality was to keep the minorities down. And that's what they did. And so that's what this happened here in the state for those 50 years. All of the families were moved around. So we had like work camps. I mean, I remember the first what they call white lie that you told. I was in grammar school in Oakland, and it was called Franklin Elementary, the school that I went to. And so we came back for the summer, and the teacher said, "Oh, what do you kids do for the summer?" And everyone, "Oh, I went to Disneyland. I went to Playland, whatever." And I go, "Yeah, I went to Playland," and I was lying. Well, where I was I went and picked fruit. See, so the Native people were the first ones working in the agriculture. Now, a good example, you probably heard of Napa County, right? It's famous for wine. Well, look at the Wapos. That was their land, and they were enslaved. And not only did they make all the fences, and they created all the ranch, the grape vineyards, they planted all that. Then they moved them out and killed them. You know,
You said the Wapo?
that's why there's no WAPO land in Napa County.
Yeah,
So,
that's my mom's people. My mom's half Wapo and Popo.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and see, and now look at it. Here's one of the most important things. Did you know one of the best thing, a good example I have because I know traditional people, the Wapus were really more of our traditional healers. They brought that. Matter of fact, there's in the town, and again, Middletown, which is called Middletown Rancheria, you know, and so what our people have to understand is all our names get changed. Now, my tribe was originally called, now this is by the Bureau of Indian Affairs, the Sulphur Banks Indian Rancheria, okay? But in 1906, so what happened was the government realized how they cheated us. So in 1906, they came back in and bought Native American lands, called them reservations. But all they did was bought the lands that we had, like, in other words, a house. And that became the reservation, the house and that little lot, you know. But some places had big places, like a good example, many of the tribes, their families united together and created work camps for all the people to come and stay. So they would go like pick hops, they would do, you know, all these type. And see, that's how all our Native people, I could almost tell you, you give me a family name, I could almost tell you what mixed blood they have.
Wow.
Because most of the intermarrying took places at this when we were in the agriculture, picking fruit, you know, pears, grapes, you know, all this, apples. That was a big industry for the Native people. And
Wow. I
that's how
didn't
we
realize
knew
that.
each other. Yeah. Yeah. So a good example, one of my best friends who passed away was John Triple. And I don't know if you know the Triple
Last name
family.
sounds familiar.
Yeah, they're all Wapo. And he was the last traditional chief there. And he was one of the students from Santa Rosa JC that first occupied Yakima.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So along with a lot of the other guys there I knew. So for example, I had a cousin who was going to school and his name was Ron Montez and he helped occupy Yakima as well.
And
So
Yakima is in Santa Rosa for people that don't know, or Santa Rosa
yeah,
area, right?
yeah, the Forestville up on the river there.
And
Yeah, that's where it's
that
at.
means our land, correct?
Yes, yes. So what happened, see, was after Alcatraz like failed, right? Um, and a lot of our Native people, for example, I was there at age 16, so I didn't really know, you know, a lot, and I was just there for the movement, and that man, it was felt so great because I actually met John Trudell,
Wow.
and the first time I heard this guy speak, I just was blown away, you know, and later on, like 10, 15 years after, we became friends because we have a traditional dance group that has traveled a lot. And we were invited up to Reggae on the River. And John Trudell was up there performing. And so I got to talk to him and told him how I remember, you know, meeting him at 16 when I was down in Alcatraz. And so we became friends and connected for a long time. And guess what? I found out him and I actually have the same birthday, except
Wow.
he's like 10 years older than me, you know. But yeah, it was pretty cool to know, you know something like that. But what I could honestly tell you is I've had so many positive mentors in my life,
You
and
know,
the
everything
majority
you're
of them,
saying reminds me of like, this book. Exactly.
right?
Yeah.
Yes, yes,
That's
and so
your
see
story is
that's
that, you know, what he's talking about in the book is it's wild to read this and
yeah,
then everything you're telling me is like it's
yeah,
like wow,
yeah,
this is the real exact story. Yeah.
yes, and see I'm living it, so I'm passing it on, and I want to teach because again, what's hard for me is that okay, after I went to the Indian boarding school, right? Then I came home, and see, my tribe wasn't even recognized as a federally recognized tribe at the time, because what they do is they have a hook. They said, all right, go under the Indian Reorganization Act, and you can become a tribal government. Well, what people don't realize is under the Indian Reorganization Act, if you read the fine lines, it says you have to give up your culture, you have to not recognize your traditional leaders anymore. You can't speak your language. And now you can become, and see, most of our tribes accepted that. And 99% of our tribes never wrote their constitution. That was given them by the Bureau of Indian Affairs. And the only difference on the thing was your name of your tribe. See, and
Wow.
so yeah, so there's a lot of things when I got into history. What happened with me was I came home And I went to Yakima, and I started working there. Well, actually, at first I enrolled in the JC, Santa Rosa JC, and I went there for just like probably 3 months, and I just didn't know what I wanted to do educational wise, and the job opened up out of Yakima, and so I knew one of the ladies who was the caretaker. Matter of fact, her name was Edna Seidner, and she became one of my most important traditional mentors in my life. She was a Wiyot native from up north, more like the Eureka area, below Eureka.
Uh-huh.
One of the most powerful female healers I've ever met in my life. And so she basically came to me and said, Jim, you have to go in this direction because of your family. And I didn't even, what do you mean my family? She knew my parents.
Wow.
She said, we know who the traditional elders are and the non-drinker. There's a lot of alcoholism that came into our communities. And she said, those are the people that we have to empower. And she actually gave me my first medicine bag. She did so much of that for me. And again, she was the caretaker at Yakima, her and her husband. So it was so great to know her. And then I realized I have aunts just like that, and uncles. And they all saw something either in me or other people, and they just kept teaching. And so what I did was in 1974, I was the first tribal administrator for my tribe, okay? And so in other words, before that, our Constitution was passed in 1972, but we didn't open any office until 1974. And so what happened was I was a tribal administrator.
Uh-huh.
And in 1975, one of the most important things that happened to tribal governments was the passing of Public Law 93-638, which is the Indian Self-Determination and Education Assistance Act. And that was passed under President Nixon. Okay, so you got to remember now, I started in the 70s, so I'm going to be, talking about all these old guys that you guys don't know, maybe. But it's the same people, and see what I try to tell our people is that, there's no such a thing as a Republican and a Democrat. It's the same bird.
Yeah. They
just switch sides, and we fall for it, and that's why I'm so proud of our Native leaders and, many of our more mixed blood Natives people who are getting into Congress, because we need that.
Absolutely.
We need our leaders to be positive. We need them to represent the people, not the corporations.
Absolutely.
And that's what's been happening. And again, like I said, there's a lot of controversy going on like that. But so what happened with us is our tribe. So we only have 50 acres of land. Originally, it was 88 acres the government bought us. And now remember, the only way I found this information out was when I got to become a tribal administrator. I would go to all these BIA meetings and I would say, what about all the records? Where are the records at, of our family and our tribe? Well, they would, every 10 years, the Bureau of Indian Affairs has to copy their records and send it to the National Archives. So we have a archives here in San Bruno, California.
Uh-huh.
So I spent a lot of time, and plus I sent people there to gather records. And I can tell you, I could prove how California stole all our lands. I have every name of a non-Indian settler who said they owned this land and the government paid them for this land. And that's how it became a reservation. So this is massive land fraud that I've uncovered. Now, but the problem is everyone says, Tim, that was 100 years ago. What are you going to do about it? It still affects us to this day.
Yeah.
And a good example, did you know in the state of California that there's over 80 million acres that are federal lands? And so in the original treaties, for example, the tribes in California were supposed to receive 8 million acres of land for the reservations.
Uh-huh.
Okay, so because it wasn't signed, all we got was whatever house we lived in, whatever land that was, that's all they recognized as our land, nothing else. The lake, the mountains that we hunted, all our gathering sites, none of that. See, so that's what we were, and then unfortunately you have people like, UC Berkeley. Now, I don't trust a lot of, I hate to say this, a lot of people love to go get their degrees and stuff, but if you look at these institutions, they're a part of this discrimination, and they carried it on. There's actually a book that I read that just really woke me up, and it's called Ebony and Ivory, and it's all about how the colleges started in the United States. And almost every one of them was based on, we got to civilize these savages. So send us money to start this college. So Dartmouth, all the famous colleges that you could think of, even Berkeley started that way. They took the lands of Native people. And then a good example, I'm happy that and I read the story. I want to tell you too that I've been doing the podcast only for about 4 years now.
Okay.
But I've been on the radio for 25 years.
Wow.
The community radio. Yeah. And
what
my
really
friend
started the radio show? What got you into radio?
Well, actually, my friend Clayton Duncan, and you got to listen to it. He's live every Saturdays at our station, and his program is called The Voice of White Plume. So he calls me up and he says, "Hey Jim," he goes, because what happened is, like I would say, when I was a tribal administrator, I did a lot of things with that grant program. I actually started the Lake County Tribal Health. I was the founder and the first executive director, and Clayton was one of the board members.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to ask you
that's
about too, is the tribal clinic that you helped bring to the Lake County as well.
Yeah. Okay. So let me get back. What was it we were talking about on Clayton, right?
We were talking about what got you into
me.
the radio show.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So what Clayton says is, Jim, he goes, man, guess what? I met a guy and he said he's starting a pirate radio program here. And he wants us on the air because we're always talking about our issues. And so he actually started this in his garage, his house. And so for 2 years, we were doing pirate radio. And then we applied for a low-paying community radio station. And then we got that. And then we went into full power. So Clayton and I have both been on the community radio, kpfz.org, for the past 25. And Clayton's been on for 26 years. I've been on for 25.
Wow.
And now my wife became my co-host about 10 years ago. But because of the COVID, she can't go in anymore. So she kind of calls in from home and, like that. So so it's really a family affair, I could tell you, because right now I have my son-in-law doing the board for me.
Yeah, I saw that. That's who, because I saw that because I watch your lives, and I saw that somebody's in there with you. I was wondering who that was.
Yeah. So again, that's my son-in-law. So again, but one of the things, a good example, there are 7 tribes here in Lake County, and I have a relative in every one of them.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and see, so one of the things hard for me is that what I noticed was when the tribes started to form. Now remember, like a good example in Lake County, about 3 tribes were terminated back in the 50s, and they had to fight for their recognition back before they could become a federally recognized tribe. And so that was going on. Okay, and so all our tribes had our own battles we had facing. So see, ours was an environmental battle because what happened was the mine, sulfur bank mercury mine, what they call it, took over the lands. And so we had to cross the mining company lands to get to the reservation because we're landlocked. And so it wasn't until all that time our children, including myself, had to walk to the bus stop, and that was almost like a half a mile through these mine tailings. We're talking about mercury mine tailings as we walked through to catch the bus because the bus would not come in to the reservation. And so, I mean, I'm actually writing this history story of ours because we actually went to the school and filed a complaint. And one of the principals there, who happened to be part Native, mentioned about this one fund that they pay for the Army officers who stay on and their kids got to go to school. They don't pay taxes, right? So see, that's what the white people look at it at the school, is that the reservations don't pay taxes. Their kids shouldn't come to our school. That's the mentality that they have.
Yeah.
And
but
again,
the exact opposite. The reservations do pay taxes.
Right. And now look at here now. See, reservations are exempt from your state taxes at all. There's no other like a good example, if you work on the reservation, yes, you have to pay taxes, out of your salary.
Yeah.
But the tribe is not, it's not taxed like that for its land. Okay, so there's just a lot of stuff like that has gone on. But so what happened to our tribe was that my elders they're all fishermen. Everyone fished. My father, my uncles, and so they would start complaining to me as a tribal administrator about the quality of the fish. And then one of our young girls got sick after eating a fish meal, and they took her to the emergency room. And the doctor in the emergency room was really upset at the parent. He goes, "Didn't you hear about the bulletin of Lake County that all the fish have mercury in them?" You know, well, nobody's telling them in reservation this.
Yeah.
See, we didn't health program. We had none of this stuff going on here. We were all on our own. The government just left us alone. And until these grants start coming in, then we start writing grants to do like higher ed. Matter of fact, our tribe had the first ever Head Start program in this whole county.
Wow.
Because
and this girl getting sick, is that what initially started the ball rolling on you starting the first Indian
yes.
health?
Yes, exactly. So when she came back, he was actually a pediatrician, and he called the mother and he explained to us. So we went on the website of the Department of Fish and Game, and we found out there was actually a warning sign out. So that is still in effect to this day. But guess what? Of course, this county is a fishing, what you call a commercial county. They always give us lip service. They want to protect the sacred sites and the culture, but all they really care about is bringing fishermen up here. Right now, there's like 50 boats out in the lake, because they're going after bass.
Yeah.
And of course, they just throw the bass back. They don't eat the fish. That's just a competition thing.
Yeah.
So what happened was the seniors, the non-Indian seniors joined us. And what happened was we nominated this Mercury mine site, which was closed down in the 1950s, 57, to the Superfund site. And it got nominated and it got accepted for funding. So that means the government has to clean it up, right? So what happened was we thought we had success. The EPA is coming in, going to clean it up. And the bad thing is what we found out was, and I had to discover all this as the administrator, the BIA was actually the corrupted one. And what they did was in 1972, they came in and billed us because, so to 1971, we had no running water. We had no bathrooms. So we were using outhouses. And we're talking about 1970, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So the great thing is this group of students came up from Berkeley High School and attended one of our roundhouse ceremonies. They were invited to it. And when they saw the conditions that we were living in, they were appalled. And they went home and started writing letters to the senators. So the BIA got so embarrassed, they came up with these prefab homes. And one of the things they said is because you're next to the lake, you have to go by what they call the 100-year floodplain, where you have to, for the floods, your home has to be above a certain level.
Oh, okay.
So they put all our homes on dikes, these 13 new homes they brought in. Well, guess what they did? They went next door to the mercury mine and bought the mine tailings from them. So all our families lived on mine tailings for those 20 years until we got the EPA in 2006 to come in and clean it up. Okay. And then when they finally come in and do that, their contractor violates the National Historic Preservation Law and destroys culture items. Matter of fact, our archaeologist who we hired for the project, he discovered 2 artifacts during that time. One was 14,000 years old, and the other one was 22,000 years old. And he said, Jim, your tribe now is the best documented and oldest tribe on that specific coast site. And because we had that old, they dated it. And so that's how long we've had it. See, so, and then what I found through my research, again, is that our original name of our tribe was called Haukuma.
Haukuma.
And it was called, Haukuma Nation.
Haukuma
and it
Nation.
was 3 villages, and all of the main villages were on islands here in Clear Lake. So that was Koi, Kamdat, and Elem. Those were the 3 islands. Now, see what, again, though, what I talk about a lot is anthropologists, archaeologists. Um, that really is a eugenic science.
Mm-hmm.
Came straight from Germany. And they only dig up indigenous people. They're not digging up Scottish and Italian. They only dig us up, our family. And see what they do is these like this guy Kroeber, who is the so-called main guy out of Berkeley. He came in and he had to colonize us because we can prove that our lands went to the Pacific coast, okay, from Lake County. So I don't know if you know where Bodega Bay is at.
Yeah, I actually grew up in Point Arena.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I'm from the Manchester
so
Point
Bodega Bay is our land. Okay. Here from LM. Now, so LM, what we had was, this is all documented, and I can actually prove this, And so what they did, see, was they had to separate us. So what he did was he came in with a colonizing name, and guess what that name was? Pomo.
Oh, okay. And
It's like Navajo is not their real name. So he came with Pomo. So now we're Southeastern Pomo, Northern Pomo, Southern Pomo, Western Pomo. And he, in his own writings, he says in 1941, he says, I'm changing the names so we can colonize these tribes and keep them in one area. Okay. So he goes, nobody here will ever accept the name Pomo. But in 20 and 30 years, that's who they're going to believe they are. And that's exactly what happened. Wow. Every tribe now, Pomo tribe of Hopland, Pomo tribe of whatever, And we're using those colonizers' names, what they've done to us. And see, that's one of the things that it's hard because even my own brothers and my older brothers and sisters, when I would talk like this, they would say, come on, Jim, slow down. You're going to get us all in trouble. And see, what happened was the older society don't realize that when they would go to school, they would get beat up or they would get harassed, any negative, because what most people don't look at is that if you look at the state, the majority of the people here were from the South. And they brought that South mentality of racism here. And then Oregon, which is also a racist state, and mainly of Germans who came down, they were the people who came in and started slaughtering off the California Indians. And they were all out of Germany. And they lived in Oregon.
This is all going on during the gold rush, right?
Yes. Yeah. And so they actually, so this is all, like there are, a good example, there are, 2 or 3 great books out, that document this. But my whole point is that great, it's finally out. But you know what? That could have been, these books should have been out 30 years ago.
Yeah.
Because the documentary was, every evidence they have is right there. And so we show how our tribes all the time, we always seem like we get cheated. We don't, look at, so what I was taught by my elders is don't just listen to them. You check the background, you check everything. So as a leader, see, that's what we're supposed to be doing for our community, not just deciding on our own.
Yeah, and you talked about the government kind of going and buying that mine the land or whatever where the mine was.
Yeah,
and that's another form of environmental racism. They're
exactly.
They're just going on these lands and buying it up and just kind of taking it and not allowing anybody else to do what it's supposed to be done with that land.
And matter of fact, what we had our own a good example. I called up I don't know if you know Winona LaDuke, but we were trying to get some windmills out there so we can generate our own electricity. And they didn't have nothing to do with that. See, anytime we want to do something positive, no, you can't do that. The government has to approve all of that. And that's the real what has happened to most of our tribal people. So let me get back to, so what happened on this environmental thing was after this group came in, Dr. Parker discovered these artifacts, right? Validating how old our tribe is. Well, this contractor went and dumped all of that into this pit. He got rid of it, which is a direct violation of this law I brought up. So here's what happened. Our small little tribe was getting prepared to have a $30 million lawsuit against the Bureau of Indian Affairs and the US EPA out of San Francisco, Region 9, because of their contractor. So what happened was these two agencies went against us. What they did was the one agency hired a chairman, put him on their payroll to make all the decisions for them. Okay, and that's illegal. You don't put a chairman on the contractor's payroll, you know. And then the Bureau of Indian Affairs, when our tribal election came up, they came in and took over our elections. And the first thing that this group did that they, and again, so what's so ironic and upsetting about this, these are all my first cousins doing this.
Yeah, it's really weird.
Yeah, and it's just that what happened is they're acculturated. They grew up in the cities, never ever, the majority of the members have never even been to this reservation, but they claim they're from here. And see, now here's another corruption, before I forget. So I was the chairman of my tribe for the first time ever from 1998 to 2000. And during that time is when the State of California Gaming Compact was signed. Now, what a lot of our tribes don't realize is we don't need the state to run gaming as long as we run the gaming on the reservation.
Yeah.
But see, because of they wanted to profit more, they created this compact with the state. Okay, so now the state, there's like close to 100 and maybe 30 some tribes in California. Well, the BIA didn't want 130, or the state of California didn't want 130 casinos.
Yeah.
So what they did was they did this. They said, okay, we're going to take 5% of your profits from every casino. We're going to put that in this pool, and we're going to give that out to all the tribes that do not do gaming. Okay, now here, you got to think, wait a minute, what's going on here? And a lot of people weren't looking at that, see? And they were just so happy, oh, we're going to have gaming now. We don't have to, account for this money. We can do whatever we want with it, that kind of thing, because it's not a federal grant, right? See, that was what the federal money did. You had to do audits. And I know I was a tribal administrator for 35 years at least. So I know the process.
And for me, I don't believe in, I think it should be not a thing given like money or like a casino. I think land should be given back.
Yes, right. And there's enough federal land in this state to do that.
Yeah.
See, and that's what people don't realize. And right now, like just the BLM lands alone, we could get all our lands back. This parks. Look at it. You know what? 90% of the parks in this state were all Indian lands. And to me, look at a good example, the Ohlone don't have any land down there. Why don't they use that money from the park to buy them lands that people come in and pay? There's ways you can do this, but we don't have.
Parking at a state park is $5 to $10. Some of that profit could go towards, like they said, certain tribes that don't have that they're making profits from. Exactly.
So anyway, so what happened then, going back to the EPA thing, was that in 2010, the BI recognized this other family of ours. Now, remember we did a new, what you call election ordinance in 2005, where a good example, if I'm going to run for chairman, I have to go before the whole council, the whole membership, and tell them why and what my intentions are. Okay. Prior to this ordinance, it was just everybody showed up and decided secretly who they're going to vote for, right? And that's how our tribe was doing all these years. And that's what was so, it was wrong, because nobody had a voice. Only the lead, what I call alcoholic people, were the ones dictating to their families how to vote. See, so now we had this, and we elected 2 chair people on this. So our elections were every 2 years, right? So it was working. It showed it worked. They all came, they showed up, it was great. Everybody got to meet who's running. So this other group went and had their own election without doing that. And the Bureau of Indian Affairs recognized them. And the first thing they did was they disenfranchised half of the tribe, which was 79 adult members, including me and all my family, and said, you guys no longer can get anything from your tribe. You're disbanded. Now, they couldn't disenroll us because we're their family, and we're the ones, ironically, that are living on the reservation. None of those council members live on the reservation.
And
They're all.
did this affect your living or housing? Because I know. So
Oh yes.
yeah. Did you guys have to
You
move
know
off
what?
the reservation
We've had 4 suicides in our community based on that.
based on the
One
disenrollment?
family. Yes. And so let me get back to this. So here's the corruption that I want to bring up. That fund I told you where they were taking the 5% from these casinos. So that money went to all the tribes who are not gaming. Okay. So for example, every tribe starting in 2006 who did not do gaming got $1.1 million from that fund. And what I was happy about is, see, I was in the negotiations and it said, you have to write down whether they're economic development, higher ed, buying land. You could do that with all this money, right? But guess what the priority was? Per capita. No, I want my share. I want my piece. That's all. So right now, most members who have a casino, if you don't get this profit out to them, they're going to recall you. It's not based on how good you are.
Yeah.
It's just this money scheme that they got our people believing in now. And that's what I see that's happening. So that money corrupted our family here. See, so a good example, we were getting individually around $11,000 a year, out of that fund.
Mm-hmm.
So now the persons who disenroll us are getting $20,000 because they prevented us from getting it.
Yeah. Wow.
And so it's a thing where anybody who says, well, I don't like the chairperson, they're going to get rid of you. They take your money and give it to the next person. And so, see, that's the corruption that nobody wants to talk about.
In our own communities.
Who brings that up? I mean, you could go to every casino, and I can almost tell you that, I mean, look at them. Every casino looks like the same thing. It's the same casino, the same architects, and it's the same people from Las Vegas controlling this. It's not the tribes. See, most of our tribes don't have their own money to put up casinos. So they're dependent on these outside financial investors. And that's where the corruption comes into the tribal community. So anyway, like I said, there's a lot of stuff. I don't know how about we get on time, but I'm sorry. But
no, yeah, I think we got another like 12 minutes. Okay. I kind of wanted to ask you this question real quick. What can we do right now within our own communities to achieve things like getting our land back and saving our forests? Like
again, we need to unite. We see what's happening here. A good example. My tribe will go to court. We're fighting. We should be inviting all the other tribes to join us. See, we're separating ourselves because I don't care if there could be a lawsuit going on in Oklahoma, and whether we like it or not, it's going to impact us because we have the tag of the Indian reservation, and so therefore we should all be involved in that law case. See, and so we don't do that. So that's how we divide one another. So to me, I look at this as that our elders, our family, we've got a lot of wealth in our elders and a lot of knowledge. And we need to bring them back into leadership to unite. Otherwise, we're not going to, because so many of us, we have great ideas and stuff, but we don't have that experience of how to do that. And I'm happy that I was taught that by my elders. And so I'm not going to do a thing just for my ego. It's got to be for all people here. Mm-hmm. And I mean, well, I have 6 granddaughters and 7 grandsons. And my life is, really with them all the time. My wife and I. And matter of fact, my wife's named Gail, and she's from Yokeo. And
okay.
And so here's a good example. Now, they never wanted to be federally recognized. So they actually went out and bought their own land.
I think
in 1881.
Okay, I think I interviewed, and that's the Ukiah area, right?
Who?
Is that in Ukiah? Yokeo?
Yokeo it's called, yeah.
Yeah, I think I interviewed a girl, Jolina Acosta, a while back. She's from...
okay.
Yeah, I interviewed her about that, and she was telling me about that, the land that they have, and they've been fighting to get back. Yeah,
and well, see, the thing too is that was a matriarch. See, that's what people don't also realize is that what the Euro-Americans brought here was patriarch system. Even their own women were their own chattel. You know, they didn't give them rights. And yet our indigenous people, it's the opposite. Our women were chiefs as well. And see, once we start taking on the influence of the American society, we start treating our women the same way, you know, like they're our property. They're not, you know. And a good example, my wife and I are going to be celebrating 50 years next year.
Wow,
Traditional.
50 years.
Yes.
That's congratulations. That's awesome. That's an amazing journey together. And I've been reading about both of you guys, and you guys are both the power couple of activism. You know, I really look up to what you guys are doing, and I'm amazed that you come on this show and told me all the stuff that you've been through and you're doing, and I'm really stoked.
Thank you. And again, we got to support our youth, you know, because they're our future, and if we don't teach them and empower them, it's going to be the same way, you know, for our families. And we got to look at. I remember going to school when I used to represent Mexican people because that's what they were telling us. They're coming across our border. And I go, my uncle said to me, "Did you draw that border?" No, none of us drew that border. You know, look at us now. Oh, you're Sonoma County, you're Mendocino. No, that was one nation. He said, you know, so that's what they continue to try to separate us. So his whole thing is family. Remember, close your eyes and let your heart know that you're all family, and we have to accept each other that way, and that way we respect one another. And so that's what I try to do most of my life. And you know, I'm there. I know we have a lot of suffering, but the Great Spirit helps us, and the Creator helps us heal.
Absolutely. And yeah, we're close. Thank you so much for coming on today, and I really appreciate it. You and I'll definitely send you this this link once I download it. And yeah, we can definitely have another conversation because I can go on for another hour for sure. I don't want to.
Well, thank you for what you're doing. Really,
yeah, thank you.
We
And
need that.
yeah,
we need that energy.
And I definitely want to connect with you and see if you know my mom's parents from the Wapo and stuff, like, because you're a historian. So yeah, we can connect. And because my great grandma was Ella White from Point Arena.
Oh wow, great. Okay.
Yeah. So definitely thank you so much for coming on.
All right. Well, thank you.
Yeah. So my cousin Len, thank you, said yes, come back, and then thank you both. So yeah, thank you so much.
All right, brother. Thank you.
See ya.
Whoa. Bye.
So thank you everyone for joining me. I really appreciate you guys, all the people that were from here from the start to beginning. If anybody wants to join me for another discussion next time, definitely hit me up. I got an email for Burn the Wagon, so it's burnthewagon1492@gmail.com. So tap in with any information if you want to go live with me. If you want to, if you have anybody that you know that wants to go live, and I got stickers coming soon. So yeah, thank you guys for joining me. And we're here to burn the wagon that is patriarchy, capitalism, and colonialism. So peace and love, and have a good night.